welcome to Spooky Ass Shit. I am your host, Eric Winnells, and with me tonight, returning once again, Brian Tony.
Hello. Hello. I'll stop.
All right, thank you. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good. As I was telling Eric, I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'm going to do my best for the sake of the listeners to not sniffle and clear my throat all that much. So that's where I'm at.
Well, you're a pro, so I feel like they wouldn't even have noticed if you hadn't said anything.
All right, edit it out.
All right, so tonight we are going to talk about a murder mystery.
Again.
And yeah, but this is an old-timey one.
Which makes it happier.
But it's you're just a little more removed from it. You're not talking about, like, people that are probably still alive. They're probably not.
That doesn't change that much for me. But all right, I'm
Well,
going in with an open mind.
You're more compassionate than I am, I guess. But this is a strange one anyway. And it's more about the high strangeness, as they might say.
Sophisticated strangeness.
Yeah. Than it is the actual probable murder. Although it might not even be a murder. It's something we're going to talk about. Before we dive into it too much, I can see the wheels in Brian's brain turning. But before we dive into it too much, I want to remind everyone to check out the website spookyas.com or spookyasshit.com. They both take you to the same place. That is the show's blog page. You can find sometimes pictures, although I've kind of stopped doing that for the most part. I just kind of did. And but you know, if there's something really interesting that I want to make sure you guys see, I'll put it on there. I also post it on our social media, and you can find links to all of those on the website too. We are at Spooky Ass Shit on both Twitter and Instagram. I use Instagram way more. And you can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas, where you can also join our private group, where you can share your twisted little thoughts without the public judging you. That's the Spookaroos. So when you're on Facebook, look for the Spookaroos. Yeah. Now, Brian, this story begins, as all great stories do, with I learned about this from BuzzFeed.
All right. The little loved listicle site from 2007 that turned into an actual news source at some point.
Yeah.
And I wasn't paying attention.
Well, here's the thing. I normally would not recommend BuzzFeed or BuzzFeed's videos or anything like that. However, I have, because it's kind of my thing here to look up spooky stuff and try to see what's going on in the world of spooky stuff. And I have become a fan of BuzzFeed Unsolved, the YouTube videos.
Oh, interesting. All right. Didn't know that was a thing.
I learned about this case from one of their videos. Now, like I said, normally I'm not so much into BuzzFeed because I'm not like a 20-year-old. But
they sent you $700
to
say their name several times.
No, that would be nice, though. But, no. I would totally shill for BuzzFeed if they were willing to pay for it. Make no mistake. But that's not what's happening here.
I'll tell them.
But I do enjoy the BuzzFeed Unsolved videos. I don't remember their names exactly, but it's Shane. There's like a skeptical guy. I like that dude. He's funny. And then I can't remember. There's a little Asian guy who like.
I'm not going to guess.
No, it's
Steven.
No.
Oh.
I forget.
I
anyway,
already guessed. That was fast.
But anyway, they're both very funny. And I appreciate their videos. So I recommend that you, if you're looking on YouTube and you're looking for something spooky that's also funny, check those videos out. And so I learned about this particular case from that video. And it's such a strange one, I thought I would share it with you and with all the listeners. And that's what we're going to do.
All right, let's do it. Do you have a Planet of the Apes action figure?
No.
Just behind your computer on the table here?
Oh, no, that's a werewolf.
Oh, all right.
This is Oliver Reed from now I'm blanking on the name of the movie. It's a Hammer horror movie.
I'm going to take your word for it.
Curse of the Werewolf? But in the movie, he's actually like gray-furred, not brown. But that is supposed to be him.
All right.
But enough about that. Brian,
Yeah.
on Wednesday, January 2nd, 1935,
Ooh, all right.
at about 1:20 p.m., a man who said that his name was Roland T. Owens checked into the Hotel President in Kansas City, Missouri.
The hotel president?
They gotta name it. That's
Work on it. All right.
Roland T. Owens.
I mean, if you're going to make up a name, that's better than most.
Now, of course, this is going to be our main character here. And so we're going to hear from some witnesses. And these witnesses, they can't really agree on what age he appeared to be. Some say he looked to be about 20. Some put him more around 35.
Keep going.
That's it.
Okay.
They all agree that he was well-dressed, however.
All right.
So he was either a well-dressed young man or a well-dressed, pushing, middle-aged man.
I like both.
All right. Now, he didn't have any bags, but this hotel is, it's a God damn it. It's a courtesy. I kept trying to say curiosity for some reason. But it's a courtesy to help the guest up to their room, whether they have bags or not, just to show them, okay, this is your room. Whatever.
Here's how the window works. Wait, what year is this again? Sorry.
1935.
1930. Oh, okay. All right.
So, yeah, people still, went
They
the
had,
extra mile back then.
Plumbing and stuff. All
Yeah.
right.
So this bellboy's helping him up to his room, and he says, yeah, he didn't have any luggage. And when he got upstairs, he had like a little bag or whatever, but the only things in it were a brush, a comb, and some toothpaste.
Travels light.
Yeah. Throughout his stay, the hotel maid, whose name was Mary Soptic, she said that Owens let her in to clean the room, but unlike most guests, he remained in the room while she was doing her thing.
Well, that's his thing, clearly. He likes watching women clean rooms.
Could be. Maybe that's his fetish. Now, she says that when she went in, she noticed that Owens kept the shades drawn tightly and that all the lights were off except for one dim lamp. He also asked that she not lock the door on her way out because, he said, he was expecting some company.
All right. Yeah, he's creating a little ambiance.
Well, what she said was that, because, yeah, maybe this sounds like he's getting ready for a romantic encounter. And maybe the police suggested that to this woman after the fact. But she said that she didn't think so. She thinks that he seemed worried or afraid about something, but that he neither said nor gave any kind of clue as to what that something might be.
Okay. So the police did not suggest to her that she was the romantic encounter.
Oh, well, no, they did not. But I guess she's just saying, like, look, there's this paranoid guy up in the room. He's got everything down. He wants the lights low. He's staying in there while I work. You'd think he would just cancel the maid service.
As you said, courtesy rules the day.
Yeah.
A well-dressed paranoid man. Let's go.
At 4 p.m., Soptic returned with new towels and found that Owens was laying in the bed in complete darkness. But she said to herself, well, he didn't mind being in the room last time I cleaned, so I'll just take a quick look around, see if things need cleaned up. I'll clean them up, and then I'll kick rocks. As she was doing this, she found a note on the nightstand, and it said, quote, Dawn, I will be back in 15 minutes. Wait. Yeah, do you have something to say?
Not really.
Okay.
I'm thinking about a lot of stuff. So if his name is Don, he decided to be a Roland.
Well, or maybe he wrote the note for somebody
It was
else,
in the
but if he
script,
was in the
yeah.
room.
No, I'm still stuck on, like, maids don't knock back then. Like, she just kind of walked in, even though she knows it's unlocked. She's just like, oh, I'll just go in here.
That is a good question, but it doesn't say that he was asleep. It just says that he was laying on the bed, so maybe he said, come in.
Okay.
Or maids
I
do
mean,
let
that's kind of
themselves in. I've had maids knock, and I say, like, I'll have the sign on the door, and I'll still say, like, don't bother, and they still come in. And I'm like, can you get out?
All right. We're taking down maids.
Hey, maids are hard-working ladies, but I'm just saying. If the sign's on the door, it's there for a reason. The next day, Soptic comes back to clean the room, this time at around 10:30 a.m. She notices, though, that the door has been locked from the outside. So she assumes that Owen's not going to be inside because he must have gone out and locked the door behind him. Now, this part's a little strange because with the doors that lock from the outside, but I guess the old-timey doors, this was something you could do on them.
That's not why this murder is strange.
No,
just
but
the
that's
door lock?
But that's part of it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So, in the olden days, doors used to lock. I mean, I guess technically they still do, but you need a key to lock it from the outside in most cases.
I know this is really, really interesting, but I can't even think of a mechanism that, like, a latch on the outside. Anyway, not important.
Yeah. Well, I think the door's like locked so that you can't open it from the outside as well.
Sure.
It must be that way. Because why would you want to lock on a door that only makes it so you can't leave?
Do you want to start a side podcast about door locks?
Locksmithing with Eric and Brian, who both know nothing about locksmithing.
But they're gonna learn.
All right. So, she assumes he must have gone out, locked the door behind him, so I'll clean the room now. He's not in here. Great. I'll let myself in. So she lets herself in. This time, guess what? Owens is there. But he's sitting on his bed with the lights off.
He has an eye thing.
Well, but think about what this means, though, because if he's sitting on the bed and the door was locked from the outside, somebody locked that door.
Dun, dun, dun. It was Dawn.
Could have been Dawn. But the thing is, I don't know if that really fits into the mystery because people just might lock a door as they're going by, or maybe it was one of the bellboys, or maybe it was the maid last time she went out. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's interesting, but I don't know that it necessarily
Has anything to do with anything.
has anything to do.
All right.
While she was still in the room, Owens answered a phone call and said, quote, "No, Dawn, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I just had breakfast."
Okay. So it's DAWN, and it's his mother.
No.
Ah, dang it.
DON. When Soptic came back at around 4 p.m. I'm just saying, and this is a lot for like one maid to be going to this room twice a day at least. I guess that was their routine, but
Maybe it was like a like a very small hotel.
I don't know. No, they had at least 10 floors.
All right, I got nothing.
So it must
Maybe
have
that
been
was her
big.
floor. I don't know.
Just saying. I mean, this was serviced back in 1935, I guess. All right, so Soptic comes back to the room around 4 p.m. to deliver fresh towels. She heard 2 male voices coming from inside the room. When she knocked on the door, she heard a rough voice say, "Who is it?" Then she explained that she was there bringing fresh towels, and the rough voice man responded with, "We don't need any."
I like it.
Well, you got to do voices,
I agree.
for the kids.
Yep. A lot of kids listening to this murder pod.
During the night, try that again. During the night, a hotel guest staying on the 10th floor, that's how I knew there was 10 floors, see? Staying on the 10th floor, reported that they heard loud voices of both male and females.
Wait, so what floor is he on?
That's the thing, I don't know.
He's on the 2nd floor?
No, I think he's on this. I think they're on the 10th floor too.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it was just a room over, maybe a couple rooms over, but they heard loud voices, both male and female, coming from the room.
He's having a party. A very dimly lit party.
Well, there was a party going on in the hotel at the time. I think we'll get more into that later.
Ooh, I hope so.
Yeah. The next morning, around 7 a.m., the hotel phone operator noticed that Owens's room's phone had been off the hook for a while without being in use.
Okay.
So the phone's just off the hook.
It's the extra do not disturb.
Yeah. She sent a bellboy to check his room, and the door did have the do not disturb sign on it. But since he was there to investigate this mystery, the bellboy knocked anyway.
Ooh, Eric would not be pleased.
No. He heard a low voice say, "Come in. Turn on the lights."
A different voice?
Well, it didn't say rough voice, it said low voice.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, I was doing...
I like it.
Listen, I'm doing... I don't really have a low voice, so that's what I gotta... Yeah. So the voice said, "Come in. Turn on the lights." So he was like, all right, I guess I will. But when he tried to open the door, it was locked. And no one was coming to open the door. So he knocked a few more times, and nobody responded. So the bellboy was like, look, I don't need to get involved in whatever is going on here. I'm just going to tell this guy, put the phone back on the hook. So he did. And
Interesting.
then he left. Never went inside the room. Never saw anybody inside the room. The door never opened.
Is it not your right to have the phone off the hook, or are they incurring some sort of charge back then for old-timey phones?
I don't know. But around 8:30, the phone operator noticed the phone was still off the hook. So she asked another bellboy to go up and say, "Can you please go see what's going on with this room? Because their phone hasn't been on the hook all morning long." So this boy went up, and he let himself into the room with one of the hotel keys. He only used the light from the hallway because all the lights were off in the room, right? But he noticed that Owens was naked.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
In bed. And he said that he seemed to be drunk. But we don't have an explanation as to why he thought he was drunk.
He's been partying.
Just
Male
that he
and
seemed
female
to be
voices. Low voices, rough voices.
You're going to like this part.
I am.
He also noticed that the bedding all around Owens was dark. Like
Wait,
there
what?
was a dark spot all around him.
Oh, that's not great.
So he just went over, put the phone back on the hook, and left the room. Sometime after 10:30, the phone was taken off the hook again. So the hotel sends another bellboy to try and figure out what is going on in this room with this phone. This time, to quote the bellboy, this is his statement to the police. He says, "When I entered the room, this man was within 2 feet of the door, on his knees and elbows, holding his head in his hands. I noticed blood on his head. I turned the lights on, and I saw blood on the walls, on the bed, and in the bathroom. This frightened me, and I immediately left the room and went downstairs."
This frightened me because it's usually only in the bathroom.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of blood to be all over the place.
It is. I've been working on a theory, but I'm going to save it.
Okay. Well, yeah, so he opens the door, and right by the door, this guy's on the floor, on his hands and knees,
Prostrate.
with his head in his hands.
But still breathing and respirating and...
Well, he was on his hands and knees, so I assume he's alive.
Yeah.
Yes, he was still alive, because the next part. Owens was discovered with extensive injuries. He had been tied up with a cord around his neck, wrists, and ankles. His skull was fractured, and he had been stabbed in the chest several times. His lung was punctured. But in spite of all this, he was still somehow alive. One of the detectives that arrived on the scene asked Owens if anybody else had been in the room, and Owen said, "Nobody." When the detective said, "Well, how did you get tied up and stabbed and your skull fractured?" Owen said, I slipped and fell against the tub in the bathroom.
Yeah, the toilet tied me up.
Yeah, well, we've all had those incidents, right?
Yeah, twice
You
a
just-
week.
You fall, and then you fall into some rope, and then a couple of knives.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what happens.
I have a symbiote. No, I'm also wondering what level the forensics are on in 1935. They're like, yeah, he was tied up. How do you know? What's that over there?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is I don't have a ton of detail. I couldn't find a ton of detail about this case. But now that I'm thinking about it, what if this is just like an internet thing? What if I've been duped? None of this is real.
Curse you, BuzzFeed.
Yeah. All right, but anyway, we'll pretend like it is real, though, and keep going. Or assume
It's
that
an
it is.
escape the room puzzle.
So after that brief exchange, Owen lost consciousness and was taken to the hospital. According to a doctor, his injuries had occurred about 6 or 7 hours before he'd been discovered. Owen died the night of January 5th at the hospital. Detectives searched the room, but they found no weapons or any of Owen's belongings either. And they decided that this must have not been a suicide. Keen thinking on their part.
But didn't he have like one little bag? Isn't that
He
just
did,
his
but they didn't
belongings?
find it.
So they didn't find the little bag. They didn't find his natty attire either.
No.
All right.
4 fingerprints were found in the hotel. 4 fingerprints were found on the hotel telephone, potentially from a female.
Okay. A lot of things about that. But again, back to the forensics. Like, how good is fingerprinting in 1935?
How good is fingerprinting now? There's a lot of
Not
questions
good.
about it.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
When Owens initially checked into the hotel, he mentioned that he was from Los Angeles.
All right, that explains it. Case closed.
But when Los Angeles authorities did a search for Roland T. Owens, they found no records of anyone by that name.
He was actually from La Jolla, trying to talk big.
His body was placed for viewing at Melody McGilly Funeral Home. As the story spread, more and more people were trying to solve this mystery and reaching out to the Kansas City authorities to see if anyone missing from their family could actually be Roland T. Owen. But despite all of this publicity, it developed no new leads for the detectives.
I feel like that's the last one we did. Or it's how are the authorities feeling about all of these volunteered bits of information? Hey, I got a thing for you. Yeah, don't bother. We're inundated with crackpots like you. But maybe that's how they actually solved some things back then. I don't know.
Yeah. What was the last one we did?
It was another murder, I'm pretty sure. Or series of murders.
Well, you're good for those.
Just call me Murder B. Don't
Yeah.
call me that.
When police tried to search for the mysterious man that was said to be in Owen's room the night of his death, the man known as Don, they could find no leads. Now, we don't know for sure that there was a second person in the room, but we did hear multiple voices coming from the room at one point, and he was allegedly on the phone with someone named Don, and he'd written a note for someone named Don.
Right, that's not a lot to go on, though.
No.
3 letters and a place.
Anybody heard of a Don who may or may not be from Kansas City?
No.
Owen's upcoming burial was announced by the Kansas City Journal-Post on March 3rd, and they said they were going to bury him, this unknown person, in a potter's field, which is where, like homeless people and stuff like that.
John Doe's, yeah.
Yeah, people are buried. Unclaimed bodies, I guess you should say. However, the funeral home received an anonymous caller who said that they would send the money necessary to give Roland T. Owens a proper burial.
It's the least I can do.
Well, okay, so that's what we think right away, right? But who knows? Maybe this was just a good Samaritan.
That's true, but the person who took the call recognized the voice as either rough or low.
They did not state.
Ah.
But anyway, the person who gave this call really did send in the money. On March 23rd, they found a bundled newspaper, and inside was enough money to cover the cost of a proper funeral for this person.
That's weird.
Also, flowers were arranged and sent with a card that read, "Love forever, Luis."
Louise. All right. Got a couple names. You can't track mail back then?
I don't know if it was like how it was delivered, but they said it was anonymous, but it was signed Luis. But
All right.
About a year and a half later, 1936 now, a woman named Ruby Ogletree found an article in the newspaper about this mysterious case. They had drawn a picture, by the way, of the person, like a police sketch kind of thing.
Of
and
what
said,
person?
Of Roland T. Owens.
Oh, okay.
And said, like, does anybody know who this is? Because they figured this probably wasn't his real name when they couldn't find his information in Los Angeles.
His real name was Owen T. Roland.
Yeah. So they were kind of passing this out. So this was going out with these news stories, too. So this woman sees this sketch in the paper, and she says, that looks like my 17-year-old son,
What?
Artemis Ogletree.
I mean, no, that's how we know that is not correct, because if your name is Artemis Ogletree, you do not need to make up a fake name because your name is the best name, perhaps.
That is a good one.
God dang.
Now, Ruby says that her son had left home, but she'd received 3 letters from him in the spring of 1935. But the letters were delivered after the time of this murder. And she said that they were typed, so she couldn't like compare the handwriting. So she thinks that these letters actually weren't from him, and that they were sent to kind of keep her from looking for him. And also, she says it was suspicious because Artemis didn't know how to use a typewriter.
Didn't know how?
Yeah, I mean,
Didn't recognize letters? Wait a second.
It's not rocket science.
Wait, were old-timey typewriters did not have the letters on the keys? You just had to know where they were?
I don't know. I mean, maybe a 1935 typewriter was different, but I think the only part that might be tricky, if you don't know how to put the paper in, that's one thing. And then if you get to the end of the line and don't know what to do. But I feel like even if you've seen, I know 1935 is a little different, but they did have movies.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there was a movie where someone, like, pushed the thing back.
Or if you don't know how to work the bellows, yeah. Things like that, with the steam-powered typewriters of the 1930s.
I don't know, but they were different. Well, they were different, but I'm sure they were somehow. But anyway.
Artemis.
Now, in the course of this investigation, they found out somehow, very vague on the details here, that Artemis did, in fact, stay in another hotel in Kansas City with another man. And some say that this is most likely the mysterious Don character that we heard about earlier.
But based on what?
I don't know. Based on the fact that he had been apparently talking to someone named Don and leaving notes for someone named Don.
But we're already taking this at face value, like tying Artemis to Roland. We're kind of we're doing that. Okay.
Yeah. They say that was the case, that it was this person.
Right.
I don't know.
The 17-year-old who looked like he was 35.
All right, now I have some theories here, which will give us some more detail on the case, but I don't know if you want to go through your theory first of what you're thinking.
No, my theory was kind of dashed pending forensics, but for a long time I thought it was like a Jekyll Hyde, or more recently Fight Club scenario where a guy talks in a bunch of different voices, and to stop the voices in his head, he ends up stabbing himself. Not a great ending, but
I don't think that's really that crazy a theory. Even so,
thank you.
I still think it's probably not what happened.
Yeah,
but it's possible. Like, that's something I definitely wouldn't necessarily rule out just yet, right?
And he tried to hang himself, but it didn't take.
It just seems weird that there were multiple incidents of him being injured and people seeing him injured, and yet, Like there was no, but like why was the phone off the hook? Was it off the hook because someone took it off the hook so he couldn't call for help or whatever? Or was it that he was trying to get to the phone but didn't have the strength to actually dial the number or anything?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's consistent, but it's not completely exclusive of someone who checked into a hotel under a fake name and wanted to go out dressed super nice and, I don't know, decided they wanted to kill themselves and couldn't get up the guts and made several attempts and comedy podcast, guys. But, yeah, I hope that's not the case, but...
Yeah. Well, that's one theory is suicide.
Let's move on.
Another theory, of course, probably the most obvious one, is that the man referred to as Don murdered Artemis.
Right, but there's a lot involved with that is more confusing to me.
Yeah, like what? Walk us through why you think that's maybe not.
Well, it's a person that is, let's say, probably known to this person, but he was staying with him? Like, does that mean he was staying in the same hotel in a different room, or they were staying in the same room? The whole thing was they just had a fight because he was sneaking around. They were trying not to pay the extra money for the other person to be in their room, and then they just got in a fight over who was supposed to get groceries, and someone got stabbed.
Whether they were going to eat breakfast or not.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't hang together quite as well, but...
Well, the second theory is that Don still did it, but he didn't do it alone.
Yeah, he was assisted by several male and female voices.
Because you're going to like this part.
I hope so.
There was a man by the name of Charles Blocker, and he had one of my favorite job titles of all time. He was an elevator operator.
Oh, yeah, they definitely used to have those.
Yeah, it's just a pleasant sounding thing.
Elevator operator.
Yeah. And he had a keen eye. And he had an observation on the night of the murder.
He knew how to use a typewriter.
Probably took place. He said that he saw a, quote, commercial woman.
Wait.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
He saw a commercial woman.
Is that prostitute? Is that what it means?
Well, we're going to talk about that in a second. But he saw this commercial woman go up to the 10th floor, which is where the room was. Let's officially say that now.
Yeah, all right.
So, in fact, let me try to look that up. I should have done that before. I think what he means is just that this was a fancy looking person, because they do mention that she was wearing a sealskin coat. So I think he just means like fancy.
Oh, so pimp.
Yeah. But it doesn't, to modern ears, it does sound more like she was selling something here. I am Googling commercial woman. I bet the only thing that will come up is this case.
You're just going to get Judy Greer playing a mom in a Tampax commercial or something.
Well, I mean, it's giving me the definition for commercial.
Love Judy Greer.
I know what a commercial is. Let's check Urban Dictionary. No.
For a mom like me, who's always on the go, sometimes it's hard to learn to use a typewriter.
So I don't have a solid answer about what this 1935 term commercial woman might have meant, but I think that it means she was bougie.
Okay, fancy.
Yeah.
Fancy lady.
Yeah.
Commercial woman meet elevator operator.
Now, the elevator operator, Blocker, he says that the woman was looking for room 1026 and that she was trying to meet a man but couldn't find him. Oh, I do have the room number written down, because she was looking for 1026, but Artemis was staying in 1046. So, maybe this woman has nothing to do with anything. Or maybe she got the rooms mixed up, and she was actually trying to find 1046, and that's why she was having so much trouble, because she was looking for the wrong room, the wrong person.
I hear there's a room up here where everybody is dressed very nicely. I'd like to be a part of this.
Or the other theory is that the other part of this theory is that maybe she was looking for 1026, and this is the room where Dawn was staying.
Okay.
And they were meeting up to go to 1046 to commit this murder together.
Do we have the floor plan? It's important, Eric.
Now, the thing to remember about this is, of course, the police say they might have some female fingerprints on the phone, and of course one of the witnesses reports hearing loud voices, both male and female, coming from the 10th floor room.
Okay.
They don't specifically say 1046, but...
But now I'm thinking, like, No Country for Old Men, where 1026 and 1046 share a wall, and Dawn scoots out through the vent after the murder.
Could be.
It's a large vent.
Another theory is that Artemis Ogletree was killed because he had been unfaithful.
Okay. Seems like a leap.
Now, the reason why this became a thing is because there was a news report about this case published in the Newcastle Sun, which was titled Mystery Murder in Room 1046. And when this story ran, a woman called the local paper and said, "You have a story in your paper that is wrong. Roland Owens will not be buried in a pauper's grave. Arrangements have been made for his funeral."
Right. Well, didn't we already go over that, or is this new information?
It's the same information, but from a news source.
Oh, okay.
So this woman's calling to let the paper know, no, he's not going to be buried in a pauper grave. We've given him money for a real funeral. When the person... So that's not all that interesting, right? That could just be someone who knows a little bit more information than the reporter knew,
Yeah.
and is calling and saying, "No, you got this wrong," and like being nitpicky. But here's the second part. When the paper asked this woman to identify herself, she said, "Never mind. I know what I'm talking about. He got himself into a jam."
See?
That was the end. End of conversation.
I mean, did that count as like a super salacious burn back then? He got himself into a jam. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the thought process for why do you say that?
Well, to me, that still doesn't... I mean, we don't
He
have a
knows what he
recording.
did.
We don't have a recording of the call, but to me, that still doesn't rule out the possibility that this is just someone who happened to know, like that. Yeah, oh, they're not going to bury him in the pauper's grave. That someone paid for a funeral for him, and then when the paper like kind of questioned them, she was like, "I know what I'm talking about."
Yeah.
And then like just kind of threw in, he got himself into a jam, like
Speculating
Yeah.
that I know what happened. I see it all the time. Well,
Yeah.
gotta go.
or it could be someone who knew a little bit more.
It could
Who
be.
knows? But I'm just saying, I like to keep an open mind and just follow the clues where they may lead. Okay,
This is
So-
not Ruby.
Ruby.
Well, isn't she this is the mother of the
Oh, sorry.
supposed... Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it is now that you mention it. But we're not done with all this funeral talk yet, because
Thank God.
at the same time, a man called the funeral parlor. And he said, "Don't bury Owen in a pauper's grave. I want you to bury him in Memorial Park Cemetery. Then he will be near my sister. I will send funds to cover the cost of the funeral." End quotation.
Wait, this is... We already buried him somewhere else. You're going to have to pay for the exhumation as well, sir.
Well, that wasn't the end of the phone call, though, because he also said Owen had jilted a girl that he was engaged to.
Okay.
He said that in room 1046, a man, he doesn't say who, he just says a man, the jilted girl, and Owen had a little meeting. Before hanging up, he said, "Cheaters usually get what's coming to them."
Death. Cheapers. All right. I mean, Carrie Underwood just screwed up a guy's truck.
Well,
I
yeah.
think that's more fitting.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Shortly after, the Rock Floral Company received a phone call requesting that 13 red roses be sent to Owen/Ogletree's funeral. And he also,
13.
the caller further said, "I'm doing this for my sister."
All right.
And that is all the information I have on this case.
Okay. That kind of fleshes out one of the two murder theories, I guess.
It does seem like quite a price to pay if you're a 17-year-old. I mean, I guess 17 was different in 1935.
Well, yeah.
That was like pretty much a grown-up back then, whereas now it's like pretty much still a child.
Yeah, well, didn't think they recognized back then that your brain isn't done until you're at least 18.
Yeah.
But yeah, people got married earlier back then. But imagine that kind of pressure.
Ugh.
Don't care for it. Okay.
So where do you stand on this? What are your thoughts and opinions here?
I mean, after that, it does kind of sound more like the fact that people kept coming forward to pay for his funeral just because that was, like, I don't know, the right thing to do in their minds, and yet offering no information about them. So it seems like he was a guy who was known to several people who were clearly trying to not sully themselves with quote-unquote distasteful business, which kind of tracks for what I imagine the 30s to be like, even though I'm talking directly from my ass about that. So, yeah, I guess I would go over to the murder side at this point.
Yeah. No, I think I'm with you. I think that's the most likely explanation. Although, I do wonder if they murdered this guy, and it seems like if this was the case, this was a very brutal and vicious killing. It wasn't just like something that happened in a fit of passion, you know?
Right, but I feel like they planned that. And again, I'm kind of stuck on the dark stuff around him in the bed.
Right.
That's weird to me, because if that's blood, that means he's existing for a while, having
In
been
this condition, yeah.
severely injured. I don't know. I guess that tracks.
Well, my point is, though, is if they went to the trouble to give him this hellacious beating and everything, why then are they like so against him being buried in a pauper's grave?
I don't know.
But no, I guess that makes sense. I was going to say,
Because keeping up appearances was a much bigger thing. I really believe that.
right, but
I just thought it was the
if
right-
you get away with murder, you
Yeah.
murdered someone and you get away with it, you're going to call the funeral parlor because you feel bad because they're going to be buried in a pauper's grave?
Yeah. It's the right Christian thing to do after you've murdered someone. But also it's not like they're tracing phone calls back then.
Yeah.
They know that they got away with it and that they probably still will get away with
Well,
it.
the other thing too is perhaps they didn't mean to murder him.
It's
Perhaps things
possible.
got out of hand in some way, and when they left, he was still alive, obviously.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Let's just leave him here, and hopefully someone will help him out, and he'll be good."
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like even if they did intend to murder him, they're not good murderers. They're like bad at it with all the different machinations of the door locks. Watch out for that podcast, guys. But like there's a bunch of sloppy things about it. That even if they did intend for it to happen, they fucked it up. And if they didn't intend for it to happen, it was just a bunch of bad in a fit of pique machinations
Yeah.
of a lover's quarrel and Don.
Yeah.
A lover's quarrel plus one.
I would like to know who Don was and how he figures into, because you figure the woman is the jilted person, right?
Yeah.
This commercial woman.
Yep.
But yeah, how does Don figure into all this?
Mama, I met a commercial woman. Yeah,
Unless
Kansas
maybe
City
this
Don.
was like some kind of gangster thing, you know, where like Don was like a Don, you know.
He was yeah. I mean, I would believe Don had, but again, so incompetently done. Maybe
Yeah.
Don has not done this before.
Yeah. Well, that's what you call a locked door hotel room murder mystery.
A sometimes locked door, but sometimes locked from the outside, and sometimes intentionally open.
Well, it seems so. Like, what was it? One of the bellboys that went up to deal with the phone, right? He's the one that saw the dark blood around the body.
Yep.
And he didn't say that it was blood. He just said he saw a dark stain all around the body.
Could have been pee.
And then he just left.
Yeah.
And like
He's not a housekeeper.
that didn't become like a thing. It wasn't until the second guy went up and saw a guy like on his hands and knees with a major wound in his head and blood all over the walls.
Maybe the hotel president is a place known for its high levels of discretion.
I guess so.
But
as long as you're bleeding in your own bed, you're allowed to do it.
Yeah,
privately.
We'll refresh the sheets, and I mean they're going up. They're going up for fresh towels about 7 times a day. It would seem. So that's definitely on brand. But I like that we're continuing the bellboy thread that we started way back in the Jaws episode.
Yeah, well,
fantastic. But the one thing I thought of is so he was expecting this meeting, which is just a little extra wrinkle, because he's leaving notes and he's leaving the door unlocked. So he's expecting to meet her, and then Dawn tags along.
But he left a note for Dawn, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe she left a note for Dawn. Who knows?
Maybe, but yeah, and his mom seems to think that he knew Dawn, and they were
that's the
staying
thing
together.
I'd like more information about, because the mom says that he like had taken off, but that she got some letters from him. What was his life? What was this Artemis Ogletree's life? Like, was he running with a bad crowd? Was he involved in organized crime activity? Or was it just like he was just a punk kid, or was he just running around nailing broads? What was going on?
I don't know.
I feel like if we knew more about his past, we might know more about how he ended up this way. How did he end up in this hotel? Excuse me.
Yeah, he's a fancy dresser. I don't know much about. Maybe if I knew more about Kansas City historically, I don't know if that was a hotbed of like.
Road trip.
It was big. I've been to Kansas City. All I remember is the barbecue, which is very good.
Yeah, good barbecue, good music, right? We should go.
Yeah, it's good. Don't fuck up, people. Don't go to the Kansas one. Don't do it.
All right. Anything else to say, or are we good?
We're great.
Okay. In that case, we're going to end this episode there. And, of course, before we go, I want to remind you one more time, check out the website, spookyasshit.com, spookyas.com. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram, both at spookyasshit. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/spookyas. Don't forget to join the Spookaroos group there. Please don't forget to share this show, like, subscribe, all that stuff that you do. It does, I know I've said this before, but I really mean it. So I hope that you will consider taking a moment and leaving a nice review on iTunes or wherever you happen to listen, because it really does help keep me motivated to keep the show going. There are some days when it's really a struggle, and it's just like, I got to do a whole nother episode. I got to find more notes. I got to try to invite somebody over and record this. And of course, part of that is fun, but it's also a lot of work. So it's nice to see some happy customers and know that people are out there listening and enjoying the show. So if you could take a moment this week and do that at some point, it would mean the world to me and little Brian.
Aw, you used my nickname.
Yeah. All right, then. Until next time.
Let's do it in a voice.
Do it in a voice?
Yeah.
A rough voice or a low voice?
Dealer's choice.
All right. Until next time.
Don't be afraid.
His name's Ryan. The little Asian guy on the BuzzFeed videos. His name is Ryan.